Today on Your Ag Empire, we're talking with a guy who's proof that you don't need to inherit land to grow something big. Gavin Spoor is a first generation farmer from Northeast Missouri who turned 6 rented acres into 2,000 acres of row crop and popcorn operation. We're talking specialty crops, building trust as a young farmer, and what it really takes to grow your own empire. Gavin, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
Let's start off here from 6 acres to 2,000. Take us back. I mean, what do you remember most about those first 6 acres?
Oh, I was pumped. I was out there every other day. We sprayed and had a few escapes, so I walked the whole 6 acres. Me and my younger brother and one of my friends, there was not a water hemp or weed in that field. It was pristine.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of funny. Do you think back at that now that you've grown? Do you think back at that, just how naive you were maybe to the business aspect of farming?
Yeah, I rode with farmers and helped farmers out throughout high school and college, so I had a basic grasp of the farming side of it. But then learning the financial side of it was like drinking from a water hose,
I
or
know
not a
that.
water hose, a fire hose. Better word for it.
I know it. What motivated you to take that first leap and just get going?
Yeah, I wanted to be a farmer my entire life. From 3 or 4 years old, that's all I wanted to do when I grew up was to be a farmer. So that year was just my chance. I took it and ran with it.
So, did you grow up like in a farming family? I know you obviously helped some guys around there, and
Yeah, so my grandpa was a farmer. He passed away in 1977.
okay,
But he raised my mom and her 7 siblings on a quarter section. 3 quarters of it was woods, but they would grow enough food to feed their livestock, and then they'd eat the livestock and they'd sell what they
sure,
had left over in town. So it was enough to raise a family, but it wasn't a big operation. But I never got to meet him. He passed away 20 years before I was born. But I grew up in the country. Mom and dad, the house they've rented now for over 20 years is on a farm. So I'd just stare out the kitchen window at all my neighbors that were driving tractors. I'd get old
sure.
enough. I'd go ride with them all through elementary school. I'd get out of school. I'd go jump in a tractor or a combine or a semi truck and just
You
tag along with them.
you jumped into it with just that thought of just that omnipresence. You're around it. You're there. You're gonna finally at some point be able to take that big jump, and you did.
Yes. Yeah, that's all I dreamed of doing. And all these farmers, they had sons and daughters who were older than me that had moved away from the farm. So none of them
Sure.
had kids. I was like their little farming buddy, their little sidekick that would pester them with tractor questions.
I love it. I love it. Biggest growing pains that you've encountered along the way.
The biggest growing pain I would say is, for me personally, has been trying to my level of education keeping up with the level of growth, because I've been blessed with tons of growth.
Sure.
But when it comes that fast and my skill set doesn't necessarily keep up with it, and me, like many other young guys, you don't want to say no to an opportunity. So
Yep.
then, when that opportunity presents itself, you're running to catch up with, and keep up with it. That, for me at least, and I know a few other people that they would probably say the same thing.
We and I think you hit on something that a lot of folks don't realize, and a banker buddy of mine that he's moved way up the ladder in that career, and he and I have talked a lot, and and really, if you had a sustained 5 to 7% growth, year over year, that one would cover up mistakes. Two, it would allow you to continue to expand the operation. And you usually can do that without having to just completely overhaul, add equipment, and really just get yourself into a bad spot. And that's where I think it is kind of interesting when we get to seeing how guys grow. And then like when the growth stops or you get too much for you to handle, like that's where the rubber meets the road, and it ends up making it tough. You got to kind of chew through that. You may have a couple of years of just getting things right, and then you're off to the races again.
Yes. And the thing with commodity production, corn and soybeans, you have to get to a certain size because you touch so many dollars and keep so few. You
Absolutely.
have to race to get to a certain size if you want to be a full time guy. But then I mean, so to get there, you're not really growing 5 or 7%. You're trying to grow 100% because making a jump from 6 acres to 100 is a big leap, and then 100 to 500.
Yeah,
And when it's all cash rent or crop share, and that's the trouble with the commodity, is it's if you don't have a paid for land base, it's just difficult. You have to get to a certain size, and then your skill set has to get there, and then the weather and everything has to cooperate with you along the way. Otherwise, you get in
absolutely.
trouble.
Yeah, and timing's everything. If you get in an uptrending market, the first 5 years of your career could be just roses, and growth happens, everything works. You're able to get all the equipment you need. You got a good land base, and you're making money, and things are great. But the same thing, a guy could do the exact same play card, but pick the wrong time, and he's in a downtrending market, bad weather environment, and all of a sudden he's straddled with debt, feels like a failure, but he didn't do anything different than this guy over here.
Yep.
And to me, I think that's one thing that people don't understand in ag. It's like there's a little bit of luck, just timing of when you decided to jump in.
100%. I almost struggle to give too much advice to young guys that ask me for advice, and I always start off by saying, "This worked for me. It's not going to work for you." When I
Sure.
started in 2017, I was still in college, had a small amount of acres, and as I came out of college, got the chance to rent some more. We hit that inflation around COVID, and I was
Yep.
able to pick up acres, run a piece of equipment, sell it for more than I bought it for, and jump into the next size bigger and run that.
Yeah.
But now is we're heading down and equipment's going back down in value. If a dude tried to copy, a guy or gal tried to copy what I did, it would not work right out of the
Yeah.
gate. But it worked for me 3 or 4 years in a row.
And I think being nimble, I think a lot of times you've been a scrapper. I feel like you have been innovative in, whether it's your social media platform, just everything you've done, you've grown and fit the mold where you needed to get there to the big show. And I commend you being first generation because it's easy. Everyone romanticizes those brand new fleet of John Deere equipment, case, fence, whatever your flavor is, it doesn't matter. But man, it's hard to make that work. It's especially if you're a first gen guy. I commend you for breaking out the old 1066 and showing guys that like you can still do it.
Yes. That's one thing that I wanted to showcase is you can plant a whole lot of acres with old equipment if you just keep your butt in the seat, which is a total pivot from last year because my girlfriend and I, we've built a social media platform where we had the opportunity to run some brand new stuff. And I almost felt like I was pretending to be this big successful farmer that I wasn't because it's great to get to run this brand new stuff. But if I
Yeah.
didn't have a social media platform to back that up, I wouldn't be buying brand new equipment. I'd be doing exactly what I'm doing this year, which is running old stuff, box fill, pre-def, and just getting the crop in the ground.
I gotta say, so the 1066, she's sitting on the side of the field, if I believe. I,
Yes.
I saw the social. I thought the poor thing sitting out there in the rain, man.
Yeah. She was dusty though. She needed a bath, so I got one for free.
There you go. There you go. Now, and you took the planter and you completely rebuilt it, and added some technology to an old platform. How did that go for you?
Really good. It rained, so I was scouting some fields yesterday, and I've got pretty respectable stands, I would say, everywhere. We're sitting about as good as you possibly could right now. But yeah, we rebuilt that planter. It's still chain drive, but we've got row clutches, and it's the stock row unit, but we put aftermarket parallel arms and bushings in it. So we took a 50-year-old planter and made it as good as a new one could be for probably a sixth of the cost.
That's what we've kind of talked about, that precision planning and some of the different parts that they have, and now you can even buy the whole row unit. I know everybody's kind of getting into that where you can buy the complete system. You take some of these. I've got an old Kinsey 12 row. I love that planter, but I would love to put new technology on it, and
Yeah.
if I could have that planter brand new set up the way it needs to be for 40, 50 grand instead of spending 250, at the end of the day, I'm harvesting the same $4 corn that everybody else is.
Yep. I
And
was addicted to the machinery the first couple of years because and still kind of is. I mean, I'm just replaying my childhood when I had all these different farm
yeah,
toys. But now I'm an adult, so I get to do it with big toys in a big toy box. But that equipment does a job, but having it and it being super nice doesn't make you any money. The goal
Sure.
is to put money in your pocket. So you want the nicest stuff you can reasonably afford to do the best job possible. And so I've really spent the past 18 months slowing down and taking a look at how I operate versus how a really successful long-term guy
Yeah.
operates, and trying to emulate him instead of me just picking new toys off the shelf.
So, Gavin, one of the things that I want to let our listeners know, so you're first generation. I'm sixth generation in agriculture, but first generation in the fact that I had to start my own operation from scratch. And in doing so, there are things that you and I've encountered that a lot of our listeners, a lot of the young guys that are kind of out there, like, what do I focus on as far as equipment? What's the one piece of equipment that you think it's okay to splurge on or that would save you money?
Right now, you want a good, reliable planner, but you don't have to get a lot of money wrapped up in one to have a good one. My favorite piece of equipment that we've got a lot of money in is the sprayer. I've got
Okay.
a lot of small fields in northeast Missouri, and that sprayer allows me to be very timely with my herbicide applications. It's got a fancy ag leader right spot system, so individual nozzle control. That helps a lot in the patches. Maybe not on a big wide open field, but that sprayer saves me so much money, and I can do such a good job with weed control. I would say splurge on a sprayer. At the bottom of the list is a combine. I think you should have a decent combine,
This
but
is
there's
kind
a
of
lot of
funny.
guys oversized.
You and I are about to we're going to contradict each other.
A
I
combine,
love it.
there's, at least in our area of northeast Missouri, there's so many farmers that are over equipped.
Yeah.
If maybe you go run a semi for him and he combines your crop, there's a lot of money you can get wrapped up in a combine and it disappears quickly. So if you can find someone that can harvest, you're in good shape there.
Well, I took the other day, and I'll tell you what kind of the evolution of what I did is we ended up. This was several years ago. I was trying to think. Maybe this is probably my third year of farming. We had a beautiful wheat crop. Started off, it was 90 bushel wheat, and that was one of those years where the wheat price was high at the time. I think it was around $7, which take inflation out and all that good stuff. That was actually a good price back then. But a hurricane came into the Gulf and we got rain for 30 days. It seemed like it freaking rained every other day and we couldn't get the crop out. And between that and one other time where I couldn't get my Milo out and it went down due to weather, and I had custom harvesters I was working with, and they didn't show up, and then the weather got bad and they ended up pulling out completely of our area. So I bought a 9860, which was horrible. It was actually the worst combine I've ever had. Completely rebuilt it. I got to tell you guys, like, that was the biggest $25,000 lesson that I've ever had, and I actually had it multiple times because we had to rebuild it. It just shook itself apart. Long story short, I had a guy tell me that I didn't know how to put it back together. He thought he could. I was like, dude, buy it, take it. I cut him a heck of a deal. It still come apart after he put it together. Something major was wrong. So I got rid of it, had a custom harvester that was he kind of worked with me for a couple years there. And then I actually ended up buying one of his spare machines. So I've got a 2016 S670 with 40-foot MacDon, 12 row. It's just 1293, nothing special, but it's clean. But man, I can get my stuff done now in a hurry. I've got two trucks, so I've set up a separate enterprise. We've got a trucking division that's out trying to make money every day, and then I pull them in when it's time to harvest, and they follow me around. And so for me, it's taken a while to get everything built up to that point, but like I wouldn't give anything for that combine. Like that, I think has given me capacity to where I could get the revenue back into the farm because I got to looking at it. I think probably those two weather events in a 10-year period cost me about $1 million in revenue. And I remember harvesting wheat, literally combing up whatever I could, and it was August 5th in Texas. And I'm just like, this is horrible. But when insurance isn't enough to cover anything. Yeah, it's gonna cover you, but it's not gonna cover you all the way. And you're sitting there trying to comb up everything you can because you were still peeling up 25 bushel wheat.
Not
It's
very
like
fun.
you're in that donut hole, where the insurance doesn't protect you.
Yeah.
I do agree with you though. I think having your own sprayer, being able to timely get in and get your stuff done, I think that is huge.
Yeah. And I agree with the timeliness on the combine too. I think you can get a really good combine cheaper than you can get a really good sprayer.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with
So
you.
I don't mind having we overspent on a sprayer because the technology is there. A combine's
Sure.
a combine. I think, you can get a clean sample out of anything, but having that fancier stuff on the sprayers really paid dividends. I'm also talking about me specifically and not young farmers in general. I'm very spread out north to south. So
Yep.
harvesting is one of those things where I don't feel the need to have to do it myself. I don't mind calling in reinforcements. Once we get
Sure.
halfway through October, if I'm not done, I start making phone calls because I'd rather have that crop out of the field from a neighbor who's already done than me trying to, be prideful and do it myself, as long as it can be done timely. So yeah, I've been asking the guys in the group, trying to think of what should I do for a combine. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah, it's been fun to have you in our network. The guys have enjoyed it, and I hope you're getting some good out of it because there's just a wealth of we've got such a varying age from in their 20s to mid 50s and everywhere in between, and guys that have first gen, some are fifth and sixth generation. It's so cool to see that dialogue back and forth.
And there's such a wealth of knowledge there, and I don't have that dad or grandpa I can lean on and ask questions. Hey, what should I do? So just being able to throw a question out there and someone can pick it up and answer it whenever they want, that's so valuable.
The environment we've created, I really wanted it. I hope you don't ever feel like an idiot whenever you ask something, because that was my goal, was that everyone there is inclusive and can bring everybody together, and we're there to lift each other up, not tear each other down. So like if there's legitimately something you don't know, feel free to throw it out there because somebody has dealt with that or needs to brush up their knowledge on something, like help them. And I definitely feel like our group is in that realm.
Yes, I would agree.
So, we're talking about crops. Now, how diversified are you?
This year, more than most. I've got the majority is corn and soybeans, but I do have a few hundred acres of winter wheat, which we're going to
Okay.
double crop with non-GMO beans. I'll pick a premium up on. And then I also am doing 80 acres of milo, and I've got my small amount of popcorn. In the grand scheme of things, it's a much smaller portion of my acres than it used to be. Because when I
Sure.
started, it was half my acres,
Yeah.
but I couldn't sell 1,000 acres of popcorn. That's an insane amount. But it's the crop I enjoy the most, so I'm still growing that one and really enjoy doing that.
How do you do your popcorn? When you harvest it, do you keep everything separate? How does walk our listeners through this? Because I think it's interesting, these specialty crops.
Yes, so popcorn production is very similar to field corn production, almost identical throughout the growing season. Same planter, same combine, same herbicide program as I use on my conventional corn. A little bit less fertility, but I still push it because if my popcorn doesn't use it, next year's soybeans will. So I don't really dial
Sure.
it back. But it doesn't really need as much because you're only growing about half the bushels as field corn would. It's
Gotcha.
after harvest that it changes. And I have to be super particular with harvest because if you just barely nick that kernel or scratch it, that pressure can release. When you go to pop it, it won't explode. So you've got to be really gentle. You want grain on grain threshing. You don't want that machine to do a bunch. You want that grain to thresh itself. And after harvest, it goes in the bin. We dry it down to about 13, 14%. And then we'll send it out to Kansas. It gets cleaned in a food grade cleaning facility and shipped back to me. I keep it in a climate controlled warehouse at my farm, and we ship it out from there. We ship to 50 states, all 50 states, and then also movie theaters, kettle corn companies. We're doing 100% direct to consumer.
Awesome. So are you storing that at your location? Are you putting it in bulk bags in the barn? How do you do it?
Yeah, it comes from the seed cleaning facility in 50-pound bags wrapped up on pallets, just like your seed corn would. And
Okay.
so it's in pallets in my warehouse. And from there, we sell the 50-pound bags directly, or we'll take that 50-pound bag and break it down into the 2-pound bags that go through
Gotcha.
the website.
I was curious, just from a logistics standpoint, like you sometimes these specialty crops they're good, they're better revenue, but yet they also come with a cost. And
It's a
that's
whole lot more work. The good thing about popcorn is it lasts a while. So it's not like I'm making cheese or ice cream that's got to be
yeah,
devoured pretty quickly. That popcorn, and that's one of the reasons I went with popcorn while I was in college, because it fit my class schedule. I could sell it on the weekends or after class, but it wasn't like sweet corn where it's going to go bad if I'm not selling it right away. And I could use
exactly.
the equipment I already had. So it fit what I was doing perfectly.
That's awesome. I love that. Did you do a lot of research, or did you just kind of stumble into it thinking, yeah, this is what we're gonna try it?
Some, I will say I did some research, enough that I was confident in myself. But whenever you've never done anything before, you're probably overconfident in your abilities. But
Sure.
I grew 15 acres without having a kernel sold. I mean, I planted it and it was there, and I had the money wrapped up in it, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to sell any of it. But once I planted it, what I did was throughout the summer, I never had Facebook until I made my farm page to sell this
Yeah.
popcorn, because I had to have a business page. To have a business page, I had to have a personal page. So I made my own Facebook, and then I made the business page. And every Sunday after church, I would go out to the popcorn field and make like a 1-minute update. This is what the popcorn looks like. I'm young and stupid, and I'm a popcorn farmer now. Check this out. And I did that every week throughout the summer. So I had this following before I ever had the crop ready to sell of people invested in my popcorn. So then
Sure.
once harvest showed up, it started flying out the door. And that whole summer and fall before I harvested it, I was walking into grocery stores and asking them what did I need to sell a product in their store. They said I need barcodes,
Sure.
expiration dates, nutrition facts, tamper-proof packaging, all of this stuff. So I was getting prepared to sell it before I ever had it ready to sell.
Yeah. That's a true farmer fashion, though. Don't have anything sold, but I'm going to worry about growing it because that's what we do.
Yeah, that's my favorite part, is growing it. Selling it, I just get really good at selling it so I can grow more of it, because my real passion is growing it.
That's yeah. And that's the thing about it. I think for you, like building a brand and having a following, that's huge, especially for the popcorn. That could be big. Shifting gears here, young and first gen, farming without a legacy. And I'll tell you, like I sometimes I think you and I have the better end of the deal than some of these guys that have 4, 5, 6 generations farming with paid for land and maybe a fleet of equipment. Just the stress that they're under, that a lot of these guys are under. Sometimes that land comes with strings attached,
Mm-hmm.
and the ability for you to go branch out into popcorn, win, lose, or draw, it's on your shoulders. But you didn't have anybody saying, "Hey, Gavin, that's stupid. You shouldn't do that."
Yeah, I didn't really. It's been nice. It's
Yeah,
stressful, and you screw up. I screw up all the time, but it's all on me. And if something were to fail, I don't feel like I'm letting dad or grandpa down, because
absolutely.
they didn't build it and I lose it. It's all everything I built has been in the past few years, and it's all on me. So it almost takes a little stress away, because I know I
That's
don't feel like I'm losing something someone else built for me.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I feel like that has been one of the biggest. When I talk to young guys, and they always ask, like, "Could I start it the way you started it?" And I'm always like, "No, they can't." For the time that when I got started compared to when you got started, like that, there's time that has passed. The economics of the whole operation has changed. Like you couldn't debt service what I did back then now, which is crazy, and then inflation has helped us along the way where my valuation has steadily climbed. So for a young guy looking at that, I think you've got to be innovative. And when farming without a legacy, like, yes, you can start from scratch. And I want to, if they want it bad enough, they can do it. Would you agree with that
I
sentiment?
would. You can get anything you want. It's how much are you willing to sacrifice to get there.
Have
So, and I'm not sacrifice in a bad way, but there's just, I mean, you can't go on 10 vacations a year. You can't take off at 5 o'clock. You just, what are you willing to put in order to get what you want?
Have you had, since you started, have you had any bad days?
I've had bad months, but you have to keep on pushing through that.
I love it.
You,
That is so true. That was a perfect answer, man. I tell you, like a bad month. I know it. There's certain times of the year when I feel like the farmer sentiment across the country is just negative. I don't care how good things are, but it just, whether it's the cold weather, the snow, and you can't get stuff going, or whatever the case may be, there's just times of the year, man, where it's not all sunshine and rainbows for us.
you got to have some be realistic in there. I've tried, and I know I'm young, but what I've learned through just the few years I've done it is to be consistently slightly optimistic. If you're
Yeah.
always just slightly optimistic, you can keep heading in the right direction.
It,
When I first started, I was riding the good and the bad. So I would be gung ho and then I would be real down. But if you just
yeah.
stay flatline with just a little bit of slight incline, you can keep on persevering through whatever face you come into contact with.
I like that because it is such a up and down industry that I think it's huge for us to try to stay positive. And for the young listeners that are out there, if you want it, it's yours. There's nobody in your way. It's just, can you remove those barriers of entry to get in there and do it? What was it like? Because this is always talked about, but being a young guy, you're getting started, you've got big plans, you've got all this, everything's going to work. You're going to get up there to 2 or 3,000 acres. You're going to have some new equipment. That's our goal anyway. What's it like to be in a world that's full of seasoned producers, guys, farmers that have been there, and they're looking at you? You're kind of looking at them, sizing them up. What was it like being in that space? Were they
It's like,
encouraging, or
what's that? Sorry.
skeptical, or
If there was skepticism, I ignored it. 95% of them were encouraging. 99% were encouraging.
yeah,
I'm so blessed to be in an area where so many people were rooting for me. I mean, the community as a whole, even people that didn't farm, were
yeah,
rooting for me for the popcorn. But then other farmers, they're very open because a lot of the farmers in our area, they farm 500 to 1,000, maybe 1,500, very secure in their land base. Nobody's really bumping elbows, fighting over the same couple pieces of ground. They're very established. So it wasn't like they were afraid I was going to step on their toes. I was just taking the table scraps in the ground no one else wanted. So they were very helpful. If I have any questions, and still to this day, I'll call guys all the time and ask them, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't have a dad to ask, so what would you do? And they always tell me, there's two or three specifically I call a lot. This would work for me. I'm not telling you to do it, but this is what I would do. Okay, that's good enough. I can work with that.
yeah, yeah. Just an area where you could bounce some ideas around.
Yeah, yeah. But
That
they've been great. I'm super blessed to be in the area that I'm in and surrounded by the farmers that I am surrounded by.
Yeah, I'd have to say not every area is like that. That was the other thing I wanted to tell the young folks, that maybe coming back home, if you're planning to go down this road, maybe home's not the place you need to farm.
Mm-hmm.
There may be an opportunity somewhere else. There may be an opportunity that you're going to have that where they're very welcoming for someone young and new to come in and to pick up some ground. I talk all over the country with folks, and there are pockets of this country where there's ground just not being farmed that you could pick up today if you wanted. And it's crazy to go in these other areas where it's so competitive, so negative for anybody new and outside, and it makes it tough when you're trying to build a business.
Yep. I will say in our area, there's a ton of deer hunters. Northeast Missouri is all chopped up. We don't have
Oh
big.
yeah,
I mean, there is some big square quarters on the prairie, but there's a lot of the Kansas City and St. Louis people that have a successful business or successful job, and they own 100 acres in the country.
sure.
It's tillable. Well, those guys need someone to farm it. So that's kind of where I got going, was those fringe acres, those small patches. And I proved I could do a really good job on those, and it led to the opportunity to pick up bigger farms.
I love it. I
You
love
got to be
it.
scrappy. You got to find something and get really good at it and then build off of that.
What kind of advice would you give to a young guy that feels like that maybe they missed their shot because they weren't born in it, don't have like that lead? What kind of advice would you give them?
There's opportunity everywhere. There's probably, there's a guy that's going to be starting this year or next year that's going to surpass whatever I've accomplished just because he finds a niche and runs with it. So anything's possible. I mean, it's like starting a lawn care business. Yeah, there's 100,000 of them out there, but there's still room for more. And if you're really good at what you do, you don't, your only competition's yourself. I mean, there's
Yeah,
always going to be opportunity for people who work hard for it. You're
sure.
not going to get knocked out of the game just because the other guy's a little bit better. There's room for so many. And young farm, look at the amount of people that are going to retire in the next few years that have been holding on, and now we're in a downturn. Well, they're sick of it. They're not having fun either. But there's a young guy
Absolutely.
that's got a lot of sweat equity. All you got to do is find the opportunity and run with it.
There's a lot of consolidation going on in really all sectors of agriculture, but the goal for me, I think for the young folks that are, I'm gonna call really the 45 and under category. There's going to be opportunity to grow, whether you're wanting to have a cow calf operation, a stocker, row crop. There are so many aged individuals out there, and most of my guys that are farming 6,000, 10,000, 12, 15, one's 27,000 acres. Will they pick up more? Yes, but are they actively out there trying to pick up another 2 or 3,000 acres? Most of them no. Once they find that happy medium and they're making money, they're happy.
Yep. I was
Well, let's
very, go ahead.
go ahead, Gavin.
I
Let's
was
go
going to
get your
say,
thoughts on that.
I was very, I can't even think of what the word is now. I'm drawing a blank, but I was very gung ho about getting ground, going out and picking, and I was just getting acres left and right.
Yeah,
But I finally got to the size now where I'm happy. There's enough acres for me and my hired man and another guy that helps part time. That like, yeah, I was really scrappy in the beginning and bumping elbows until I got where I wanted, and now I'm good and we're just cruising to get my feet
absolutely.
back under me. And really, instead of focusing on the corn and soybeans, that is a large part of my operation. But I want to push the popcorn hard because the corn and
Yeah,
soybeans aren't as profitable as they were. You can still make money at it. I really enjoy doing it, but I think that next big jump is going to come from focusing on something specialty again. So I wouldn't
it's
turn down more ground if it came my way, but I'm not going out searching for it near like I was the past few years.
sure. It makes sense. And find those efficiencies. It's like rather than just get more acres and make minimal profit on, like let's focus on what we got. Let's get those hammering out some good profits. And then if the right opportunity comes around, because not all ground is created equal. So
Mm-hmm.
if we can find the stuff that works, let's get it.
Yep.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Building a brand from the barn up. Everybody knows you're the popcorn farmer online. How has social media helped you grow your business?
I don't think I could build my business without social media. It was built on social media.
Sure.
From when I began till now, I've documented the entire thing. You can go back and you can see the highs and the lows and the good and the bad from the very first 6 acres. And people got invested in that. Talking popcorn specifically, popcorn is popcorn for the most part. There's some nuances, but it's mostly all popcorn. But people like mine because they can go to my page and see me growing it. They've really got invested in that. But then the farm, the row crop side of things, I grew that through social media also. So this ground a lot of the ground I picked up from deer hunters, they might have had a friend who's a deer hunter who found me through Facebook. I have
Sure.
a farm I rented because of that. They saw me on Facebook and saw that I cared about the ground and they wanted a good farmer on their ground so they could go hunting on it. And I still farm that ground, and that's been a few years. So without Facebook or something like that, I don't know if half those people would have ever heard of me or know about me.
For some of the naysayers, the whole influencer title, all that good stuff, I feel like you're pretty genuine in your storytelling. I feel like you do. You show the good and the bad. Would you encourage others to do the same thing as you?
Yeah, 100%. And don't go into it because I didn't, and I think that's why I've been successful. Don't go into it trying to become popular. I used social media when I first began, not to even talk about myself so much as it was to network with other young guys who wanted to become farmers. Because there's nobody in my area who's young who wants to become a farmer, or very
Sure.
few. So I just used it as a networking tool. And then sharing my story morphed into what it has, where now companies want to work with me. And other people follow me looking for inspiration because I've been at it for enough years that I might not have much advice, but I've got a little advice that maybe I can pass on to the next crew.
You
Running
bet.
into young guys at farm shows and talking to them, and just I ran into a guy at a gas station this past spring who's him and his brother started farming because they watched me farm for the past 6 years online.
That's
Like
awesome.
that's so humbling that that little nugget that I posted a few videos and they took inspiration from, and it gave them the confidence that they could do it too because silly old me was able to. It's so
Sure.
neat. And I think we need more of that. So I encourage everyone to share their story.
Absolutely. How do you balance the boots on the ground work with running that consumer facing brand?
I guess I don't really think about it. It's all one and the same. It's just been such a part of my life that it's became a habit that I don't think about having. It all runs together.
It doesn't
Uh,
even seem like a job now, so to
yeah, and
speak.
it's not. I wake up and I do it because I like it.
Yeah, I like that. Well, so the heart of Martinsburg. Let's move on here. Tell us about Martinsburg and what makes your hometown special.
Yeah. So Martinsburg's a little bitty town. It's a railroad town. So when that railroad cut across the prairie, it was one of the towns that popped up, and only about 300 people live in Martinsburg now. 304, I think, is what the sign says.
No
Well, we've
kidding.
got a grain elevator and a bar and grill that people travel an hour away from to come to. And it's a very tight knit community. You can draw a 5 mile circle around that town, and there's very few outsiders that farm or even own land. I don't farm within 5 miles of Martinsburg because it's such a generational town. It's so neat. The church is
Sure.
huge. Everybody gets together at the KC Hall. There's a big car show every year, a big Oktoberfest. I love it. I live 5 to 6 miles north of Martinsburg now, or I guess it's 10. My home is 5 miles north of Martinsburg. That's where I grew up. But I live another 5 miles north of that, 10 miles north in a little town of Ladonia. That's where
Gotcha.
my hub is now. But I'd love to get back to Martinsburg one day. And I'm there
That's
almost
awesome.
every other day.
That is your community. Have they been supportive of your journey?
Yep. Yep. 100%. That's one of those things. I'm very blessed to be in the area that I am in because everybody has been so supportive. And not
Sure.
just Martinsburg, the other few towns around, because there seems to be a small town every 5 or 6 miles and a small high school every 10. I mean, it's just a really unique area. And I know other parts of the country miss that, and you're not going to get it in a big city. It's just a little, little town on the prairie.
Absolutely. What do you think? I mean, rural communities need most right now to thrive? Because you've traveled quite a bit. You've seen all these countries, all these cities and towns all across the Midwest and the
Yep.
plains, and a lot of them are drying up.
They are. I would love to see small towns have a resurgence and more people move back to the country. The trouble with that, it might be a pipe dream because as we, our food can come from so far away. All our groceries can come from so far away. Vehicles move so fast. We don't have to get everything 5 miles from home now. We can go 50 miles from home and get it.
Sure.
So those small towns are drying up. And as farms get larger, you don't need the small hardware store and the small mom and pop equipment dealership. And without the agriculture changing drastically, I don't know how to revive rural America. I would love to see rural America get revived, but I don't know if it is practical or necessary. I'd like to think it is, and I'd love to see it, but I don't know if it is. Same as families. Everybody used to have 10 kids, and now everybody has one or two. I'd love to see families that have 10 kids, but it's not practical and really not necessary. Not as much manual labor. One guy can farm almost 3,000 acres on his own around here with some part time help. Where
Sure.
back in the day, you were lucky to get 500 done. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I could see that. I know it would be nice to see these little communities. There's some of them that are just so beautiful. You run across the plains and across Kansas, Nebraska, up in the Dakotas. They're just small little town, and if you're not traveling to there, you're not gonna you're not gonna know it exists.
And jobs in those small towns, if you're working at, say, the gas station at the stoplight or the bar, it's not a six-figure job. So anyone that wants to do better for themselves
They've got
has
to
no
move.
reason to stay in that town
Sure.
unless they're working a remote job. But you want to be in the city anyways because that's where the baseball games and the bars and all the fun stuff is, and all the so it's just picked up and moved and centralized around these cities. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but I wish it. I don't know how to bring it back, but I would love to see rural communities grow.
Absolutely. Gavin, we're coming here close to the end of the show, and what is one bit of advice that you would want to give to anybody out there that's wanting to start building their empire? You've been working with us.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of, I think we're gonna work on some lending stuff, and you've been part of the network. What advice would you give those young guys that are?
I'll leave them with a quote. It's a quote that I kind of live by. It's dreams only work if you do. I mean, you could have all of these amazing dreams wrapped up in your head. If you don't work on them and you don't work on it, it's not going to happen. And nobody's going to give it to you. As soon as you're out of high school, you're like a bird getting kicked out of the nest. And maybe even before, maybe a little bit after, but somewhere in there in your early 20s or late teenager years, you'll realize you got to work on your dream more than anybody else because no one's going to hand you it.
Absolutely. I love that. Gavin, where can folks buy some of this popcorn?
Unfortunately, I timed this all wrong. Last year, I didn't grow popcorn because I had so much from the year prior.
Gotcha.
So I was figuring I'll grow it every other year and grow a whole bunch. I'm out, and I will be out until like November. But I've always sold just kernels in the past and a few microwave bags, but we're working on some really cool stuff this summer.
Okay.
So stay tuned. Come back to this in November, Christmas time, and I've got some products that I think people are really going to like.
This will be good. We'll gladly share that and help you get that buzz out there. And then as far as following your farming journey, or anybody that's listening that maybe is not accustomed to you, where can they find you on YouTube, or where's your preferred platform?
Sure, you bet. The one I post on the most consistently, I'd say, is TikTok.
Okay.
And my handle on there is the Popcorn Farmer. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as Gavin Spoor. My girlfriend and I, we've got a TV show of sorts on Acres TV. It's a streaming platform called Dirt Poor, so you can watch us on there. And then I don't post much to YouTube, but my girlfriend Grace, she's huge on YouTube, and I'm on that channel pretty consistently. So you can find us there too.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks for tuning in to Your Ag Empire. If Gavin's story reminded you that legacy is something you build, not something you're handed, send this episode to someone who's just getting started. Hit follow, and we'll see you next time. Be good, or be good at it.